Is it championship or bust for Louisiana football in 2026? We'll talk about it here on Ragin Rundown. What's good, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into another episode of Ragin Rundown. All Cajuns all the time. I'm your guy, Marcus Fitzpatrick, but you know you can always call me Fitz. And in today's episode, we will be putting a bow on Louisiana, talking at Sunbelt Football Media Days. In a previous episode that is on the channel that you can check out or listen to, we spoke with former Ragin Cajuns head coach Billy Napier, and him now being the head football coach at James Madison in the Eastern Division. The Western Division teams took center stage on Wednesday. I'm recording this episode early on a Saturday morning, getting back, traveling that Wednesday afternoon, or was it the Thursday? The Thursday afternoon. I'm getting my days mixed up. It's been a long week. But I'm recording this episode here on Saturday, recapping what was discussed by head coach Michael Desormeaux. I got a chance to go one-on-one with him, and we're going to talk through some of the answers that he gave and some of the particular questions that I have played for you. I have 3 cut-ups that we'll go through, we'll react and discuss all of those things. But I have that full conversation. I'll link it down in the description of this video as you can watch it. It was a full 17-minute conversation that you can check out. The first thing is, going into this season, it was very clear that the Cajuns are still receiving a ton of respect because the coaches poll, as we said in last episode, had them picked to finish second in the Sunbelt West. Despite them going 6-7 last season, despite them, having a roller coaster instance, there were a few moments that they had opportunities to still potentially win 1 or 2 more games and the season be completely different. And so because of that, the coaches, like I said, voted Louisiana to finish second, proving how much respect that they've gained up until this point. So they go into the offseason and they have spring football. And we have talked about in previous episodes all of the different storylines that came out of that. Zylan Perry and Bill Davis no longer being there. Your running back room needing to see guys step up. Your skill positions, the receiver positions, you're young there. Your linebackers, you're having new starters once again, like what you had last season. You have some experience in the DB room and also on the defensive line. Those were all the things that we discussed. And I remember after spring football ended, one of the things Coach Des talked about was he wasn't sure what his team would be made of going into spring, but coming out of spring, he knew that they would be willing to fight and scrap because of the way that they performed in the situations that they put in front of the team during spring football. So at Media Days, I asked him, coming out of spring, going through the offseason, now heading into fall camp, what had he seen differently about his team?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen continued improvement, which is what you're looking for. And, you're well aware of the way that we do things. And, the last 2 years we've signed, 20 and 21 high school players. So we're a little bit young by nature. The last 2 years we had big senior classes. I think we have a really talented group, and I think we're young on the offensive skill positions, but there's plenty of talent. We got to grow them up. And what I've seen is those guys take advantage of the opportunities they have. I've seen constant, steady improvement. I've seen them treat every day like it's just as important as the last or just as important as the next one. And I've seen continued progress, which is what you're looking for. I got to tell them all the time, like that, we're not going in the portal. There is no help coming. Like you came here, you signed here, you're developing. It's time for you to go play, even as a young player. So I'm excited about the leadership I've seen on this team, the work ethic. They've continued at a high level with what we've came out of spring, the things we saw coming out of spring. I've seen it continue through the summer. But like I tell them, we haven't even scratched the surface. We haven't even gotten to fall camp. So there's a lot of work left to be done, but I'm excited about this group. And, as a coach, I think that's what you have to do year after year. You have to get really excited about figuring out who this team is, about what this team is about, and figuring out the way you can get the most out of them. And I think if we can maximize what this team is about, I think we have a chance to have a really good football team.
And one of the reasons that I think Coach Des believes that this team could have some special players and can be special as a whole is because of the positions that they have experience in and where they have leadership roles. Along the offensive line, you're returning George Jackson for another season. You have Cooper Fordham there at the center position, Caden Morrow. Jamarian Gooch returns. Zay Alexander is also an offensive tackle that was an all preseason All Sun Belt member by Phil Steele. Jacoby Isom had some rotations there in the lineup. You went and got Jace Mitchell out of the transfer portal. So you're very experienced on the offensive line, like what we talked about before. On the defensive line, again, you've got guys like Fitzgerald West and Maxie Baldwin and Priest Ash, guys that you can depend on that have snaps under their belt. Fitzgerald and Maxie being the seniors of that group that are going to be able to come in and steer the ship. But the one position that I think that is very clear, and it's the one that is always talked about the most in football, is the quarterback position. Because you have Lunch Winfield back, and because you're in a position that is a place that you haven't really been in since Levi Lewis. And I brought that up to Coach Des that this is the first time that the Cajuns are entering fall camp with a starting quarterback and not having a quarterback competition. 2022, Levi Lewis is gone. You have Chandler Fields and Ben Woolridge. They battle it out. Chandler wins the job. 2023, they battle again. Ben wins the job. 2024, Ben gets the job. They get to the championship game. They have injuries across the board. Daniel Bill ends up having to play in the championship game, and they ultimately lose. 2025, Walker Howard transfers in. You have Daniel Bill on the roster. Lunch Winfield is third string. Walker Howard gets hurt week 1. Daniel Bill plays a couple games. You get there to the Marshall game. That's when Lunch Winfield comes in and never turns it back over as the presumed starter. So now he is entering yet another season as a Ragin Cajun, his first full season that he now is going in knowing that he is the starting quarterback. And Coach Des understands now that having him in this position, knowing what you have going in, is going to be a true boost to not just the offense, but the team as a whole.
Well, I think that's kind of been the difficult thing, right? Is the last, this is the 5th year, so the last 4 years, it's, we're so used to having a quarterback battle going and trying to figure out who it is. You kind of forget how nice it is to have a starter coming back. And, what it allows you to do, I think it allows everybody to settle in. Hey, he's the guy, he's the starter. It allows you as a staff to build things to his strength and start to, eliminate things that he doesn't like as much, add things that he likes more, and kind of start building it around him a little bit. So, it's when your quarterback is a known position, there's some value in that. Everyone knows who the voice is. Everyone knows who, that guy is. And, Lunch has earned that. I mean, the way he played last year, when we were on life support there in the middle of the year, he gave us life, and he brought this team back to life. And certainly the guys around him played extremely well. But that happens when they believe in the quarterback, and certainly everyone in our building, coaches, players, everybody believes in him.
When the team was dead in the water, Lunch brought them back to life. That's an amazing quote there by Coach Des. And it's true because, like we said, in the Marshall game, they were down. He brings them back, and they win in overtime. They're able to steer themselves back to finishing the regular season 6-6 and getting to a bowl game once again. You're talking about being at one point sitting at 2-6 on the season, and you're able to get it done. And Lunch Winfield was a huge catalyst to be a part of that. Like I said before, having your quarterback solidified going in, who is the main voice that you're going to be listening to. And now championship aspirations feel even more important. And that's something that Coach Des also talked about. And we're going to get into that and hear from him of what he said about the Cajuns' expectation toward the championship this season. We'll hear it when we return here on Ragin Rundown. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Ragin Rundown. We're going to get back into the action in just a second. But before we do, if you are watching this episode on YouTube, please do me a favor. Please like it, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're listening, please follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review because it's going to help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. So, like I said earlier in the episode, Louisiana was picked to finish second in the Sun Belt West, he'll still pick them to win the Sun Belt West. So they are positioned to be in high regards by media members, myself included, that believes that with the returners that they have and the experience that they have in the positions, that this team, if they're able to stay healthy, has the opportunity to win the West and get to the Sun Belt Championship. Um, I asked Coach Des the plain and simple question: what is it going to take for this team to ultimately get to the Sun Belt Championship? And he has an answer that's about a minute and 30 seconds long. I'm going to play it for you in its entirety. And he said something in particular at the end that really stood out to me, because the way I interpreted it was, this is almost championship or bust. Let's listen in what Coach Des had to say.
We just got to get the most out of this group. I do think it's a really good group. You know, it reminds me a little bit of our 23 season. You know, when I sat up here and I said, listen, we're young, but we're talented. If we handle things with maturity, we'll have a really good football team. And, you know, we're sitting there at 4-2. We were in first place in the West, and we did not handle things very well. We didn't handle success very well, truthfully. We have to learn from that. And this group has to be able to, you know, I was always worried about not handling failure very well. Well, we handled that. When we didn't play well, we bounced back and played really well, but we didn't handle the success very well. Well, you know, that's a lesson learned. You know, this year we've got to be able to get this group to play consistently. If we get the most out of this group, we'll be right back in it. But that's the challenge every year, and that's the thing you got to get excited about, is you got to manage the ups and downs with a new team, with a young roster. Even though they were a part of last year, a lot of them didn't play a huge role in it. Now, you know, they're going to be in the spotlight. So that's what we've got to do. We got a good group. We've got a great group of coaches and players, guys that have worked really hard. And I think when you have a group of good people that work really hard for something, you know, I think you can go get what you want. And for us, you know, we know the expectations in Louisiana. It's to play in the conference championship and to win it. And anything less than that is subpar. So that's the standard that has been there since the day I took this job. And you know, that's what we're going for.
As you heard there, Coach Des said at the very end that the standard at Louisiana is to play for a conference championship and win it, and anything less than that is subpar. Subpar, poor, inferior, below par, missing the mark, low grade, second rate, substandard. All of these above average is not one of the things that you would say that it goes along with it. All of these different things are synonymous with what he's saying. So to me, in this, that means that he knows and understands that they have to put themselves in position to win the Sun Belt West, to get to the championship game, and not just get to it, because they did that in 2024. But they've got to get there and they've got to win it, because you have pieces in key positions. You have guys that are very talented, like what he was talking about, and he referenced the 2023 team. So I went back and, you know, I've been here working in the Lafayette market since the 2021 season when they won that Sun Belt championship in Billy Napier's last season. I've been in Lafayette for Dez's entire tenure as the head football coach of the Ragin Cajuns. So the 2022 season, I remember that, how, you know, they had the 13-game win streak, the nation's longest standing win streak. They go to Rice, they lose that game, and it snaps that losing streak. They end that season 6-6, and they lose their bowl game. 2023 was the second year that you had Ben Woolridge and Chandler Fields coming back, but you had Zion Chris coming into the mix as well. So, as he mentioned in that soundbite, you were 4-2 after your first 6 games. You were feeling really good about yourself, but then after that, after the Texas State victory that you had 34-30, you lost to Georgia State at home by 3. You beat South Alabama. You lose by 3 scores to Arkansas State on the road. You lose in overtime by a field goal to Southern Miss. You lose by a touchdown to Troy. And then you blow out ULM to close out the regular season. You round out the year 6-6. You lose in the New Orleans Bowl to, Jacksonville State by a field goal in overtime. Obviously, injuries were a factor in this, but like he mentioned, as much talent as this roster had, and I'll go back and look at some of those guys, so we can get a perspective of what he's meaning by some of the talent that they had. Because it's been some time that I've been away to have seen this roster, but in 2023, Zion Chris at the quarterback position, the Jacob Kabodi was one of your running backs. Harvey Broussard was a true freshman as a receiver. You had Tyree Skipper. Bill Davis was a true freshman. Casey Osai was a linebacker for you. You had Neil Johnson at the tight end position. Like I said, Ben Woolridge was your quarterback going into the year. You had Lance Lejean at a receiver position. Charles Robertson was another receiver for you. Lunch Winfield was on the roster at this time. Chandler Fields, like I said, was also in the mix as well. Draylon Washington was on this roster. Zylan Perry was on this roster. Keon Martin, who is now in the NFL, was on this roster. So the list goes on and on of multiple guys that I'm naming off, where you had key positions. Peter LeBlanc, another guy. You had a lot of talented guys across the board in different positions, but ultimately, as they got to a successful point in the year, they weren't able to sustain that level of success. And ultimately, it caused them to finish the season 6-7. And what Coach Dez has made it clear is that they have to be able to learn from those past mistakes, to not let history repeat itself, to not go with those trends. So I mentioned that a guy like Lunch Winfield was on that team, even though he was not contributing and playing. He was a part of that and he experienced that. So again, if you know that you have a solidified starting quarterback, knowing that he's there, and he is a guy that was a part of the last team that you felt like was young, talented. You weren't sure how cohesive they would come together, but you knew they were young and talented. Because he was a part of that team, he knows, hey guys, we can't come in half stepping. We got to put our best foot forward. We have to bring our A game. And if we do that, because of the guys that we have around us, this team can be really, really good. So, um, like I said, full conversation with Coach Dez was about 17 minutes. I'm linking that down in the description for you. That's what I think is going to be needed to win a Sun Belt title. These guys have to be able to hone in and focus. They have to be able to take care of the little things. Lunch Winfield, this team will go as he goes. If he is able to expand his game as a thrower of the football and continuing to be able to use his legs in the moments that he has to, protecting himself and staying healthy. And if they, as a whole, as a team, can stay healthy, then they have a chance to be special. Coaching staff has to do their job to elevate these guys and bring the best out of them in their best possible situations, which is something that I asked Coach Dez about. You can check that out in the full interview. How do you bring the best out of guys that may be younger and trying to come along into their own? They're going to be responsible for doing that, but then these guys have to go out and execute it on the field. One final thing, I forgot to put it in the rundown there on the side. Louisiana received another commit in their 2027 class, now bringing their commitments up to 16 in the 2027 class, as Lafayette Renaissance outside linebacker Ansinneo Charles committed to the Ragin Cajuns. He is at my day job at KTC. He is a part of our Super 16, which is what we feel like is some of the best athletes, rising seniors in the area with the upcoming football season. He was a name that was a part of that list because of how freakishly athletic he is. And so I'll tell you about him in a quick snapshot. He's 6'5", 220 pounds, and he plays that outside linebacker jack position. A comparable that I heard was Andre Jones. Andre Jones is obviously in the NFL, but that's the comparable that we're looking at. That outside linebacker position that can stand up and can drop into coverage, but they can also put their hand in the ground and rush the passer. And he has all the makeup, the physical makeup to be able to be a really elite player. Like I said, 6'5", 220 pounds. He has an 80-inch wingspan, and his hand size is 9 3/8 inches. And he also plays basketball for the Tigers as well. So super athletic kid. When I did my story on him, I get out there and he was as vocal as anyone, encouraging his teammates, coaching them up whenever they were doing their drills. doing bag works and all those things like that. So that's the type of player that you're adding to this class. Someone that can get after the quarterback, that can bend the hoop really well, that's athletic, that has length, and has the ability to disrupt uh, offensive schemes and be able to get quarterbacks off their spots, make tackles for losses, and all of those great things like that. So now, like I said, your class is up to 16 players. I'll rattle them all for you as I always do. Shadow Creek tight end Bryce Coleman, Avoyles defensive lineman Kobe Smith, Faraday wide receiver Rob Taylor, Westbrook quarterback Tam Anderson, Angleton offensive lineman Noah Ernst, Plaquemine wide receiver John Walker, ULAB defensive lineman Mason Smith, St. Thomas More safety Landon Orty, Summer Creek DB Caleb White, Archbishop Rummel DB Gavin Cooper Jr., Wiley athlete Jabriron Blake, Eastview offensive lineman Adarius Hines, Crawford linebacker Cameron Alakija, Elkins outside linebacker Amosafe Ayumere, Vanderbilt Catholic offensive lineman Philip Sinak. I think that's how I pronounce it correctly. And then finally, Lafayette Renaissance outside linebacker Ansinneo Charles. So it breaks down to 3 offensive linemen, 2 D linemen, a tight end, 2 receivers, 4 DBs, 3 linebackers, and a quarterback, partridge, and a pear tree. All of those great things. From what I've been told, this could be their class. This is they probably will be done with the number of guys that they'll be taking, because of the 5th or the 5 years, 5 seasons rule that the NCAA has gone by, that the eligibility rule. So there may be a couple more roster spots held up because of that, and so you may have a little bit smaller class than what you would have normally had. How does he fit into this outside linebacker room? Right now, at the jack position, you have guys like Princeton Malbrew, AJ Spencer, Lester Jones, Notori Brown, and Ashley Williams. Ashley Williams and Princeton Malbrew are your most experienced players in terms of years played at the collegiate level. So he's going to be able to come in, and he'll probably, get some special teams reps to start off. And then maybe in that second season, he'll be able to work his way in and become an effective pass rusher for you. And eventually, like Coach Desormeaux, mentioned to me at media days, he could potentially be someone that could be really, really talented further down the line, in his career. So kudos to the young man on making his decision. He also chose the Cajuns over the likes of Louisiana Tech, Mississippi State, and I believe Tulane. He had offers from Tech, Arkansas State, Texas State, Houston, Tulane, Syracuse, Grambling, McNeese, and Lamar. The Cajuns offered him back in February, and now he makes his decision here in July. I did an interview with him at my day job at KETC. You can go and check that out. And essentially, he said that the reason behind making his decision was that they said that they would offer him as a very early on in their 2027 class, and they stayed true to their word. They put on the full court press to make sure that they could get him to commit. They land the commitment, and now he is a part of that class. So kudos to the young man, and shout out to the Cajuns for being able to get a hometown kid, being able to keep him home. That's going to wrap up this episode of Ragin Rundown. If you made it to this point in the episode, thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, please do me a favor, like the video, share it, and leave a comment down below. But most importantly, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening, please follow the podcast feed, rate the show, and leave us a review, because that's going to help us get in front of more Ragin Cajun fans just like yourself. I'm your guy, Jamarcus Fitzpatrick. We'll see you guys next time.